Representing the late, great harness racing horse, Some Beach Somewhere, would his trainer, Brent McGrath, join us on stage? So we were trying to figure out how to do this.
Get it out of the bag, you mean? There you go.
There you go. Let me explain the video you're about to see. Some Beach Somewhere, as many of you know, passed away back in January of this year, so it was impossible to shoot fresh video. There was a wonderful documentary on this horse done after his second year of racing, right? Year two. First year of racing. It was done by Eastlink, our friends at Eastlink, and they were kind enough to give us the documentary. And I looked at it and I said, there's no way we can do better than this, but it's 30 minutes long. So we can't play it at induction. But there were these segments that we could cut together to give you a beautiful 3-minute look at how dominant this horse was, how beautiful he was, what a legacy he had. So thank you to Eastlink. Here's a great look with some beautiful visuals of the greatest harness racing horse in history.
Some Beach Somewhere was born in Ohio on May 25, 2005. Stephanie Smith Rothog owns and operates the Rails Edge Farm.
Some Beach Somewhere was just beautiful from the get-go. Didn't have a problem foaling. He was just a perfect baby, just stood right up and did everything right from the beginning. When you went to teach him something, he would just respond.
As soon as I got him on the track, I knew there was something there. He was a big, strong colt, and he had a lot of energy in him. And I think I trained him that day around 158 or 157, and he was pretty impressive. So that was my first experience with him one-on-one.
Training is one thing, but how would he perform when it counted?
Yeah, there's always questions. I mean, you never know how they're going to react when another horse may look him in the eye, and how he'll be able to fight, show fight. I find that the biggest challenge for most horses.
Some Beach Somewhere was quickly becoming a folk hero, not only to maritime fans, but to anyone in the Canadian harness racing community with the dream of accomplishing the unthinkable. Some Beach Somewhere had become so popular that Truro Raceway even began hosting beach parties.
He just floated across the ground. You couldn't hear him touch the ground. And I think he's an athlete, and that is probably his main asset. Also, he has another asset, which is called manners, which, and he's perfect on the track. And he's got this unbelievable maturity to him that when he's on the racetrack, that most aged horses, it takes aged horses to get to that point.
Some Beach Somewhere had won every race he had entered, but the next race would be unique. It would be for $1 million, and $1 million would attract the best.
Chip, Some Beach Somewhere, 16th to go. Moonbeam not going to catch him. Some Beach Somewhere, and Big Mac scoop up the big bucks to win the Metro Pace. He won by 2 lengths, and he's home in 1:49 and 3. A world record performance in the final of the Metro Pace.
Some Beach Somewhere, the fastest 2-year-old pacing colt there ever was. Dreams really do come true. You just got to believe. It's a dream that none of the owners will ever forget.
I think that they see it as a horse was trained in Nova Scotia by a car dealer, and anybody has a shot, and that's the truth.
Some Beach Somewhere went on to finish a perfect 6-for-6 season by winning 2 more races, the Champlain Stakes in 151 even, and the Nasagoya Stakes in 151 and 4. That was enough. He had nothing left to prove as a 2-year-old. It was time to go back home to Nova Scotia, the green grass and rest at Picto's Pictonian Farms. Every once in a while, I guess God makes the perfect horse, and this one ended up in Truro, Nova Scotia.
A video was voiced by the late Doug Harkness, who was also a legend in Atlantic harness racing. To present the plaque, we'd like to invite Mark Smith, Hall of Famer and chair of the selection committee to come forward. And for the pin, Stephen Tufts, a retired Truro businessman, a longtime supporter of Some Beach Somewhere. Please come to the stage, folks, and make your presentations. Thank you, gentlemen. I want to explain how this happened. So we got this nomination for Some Beach Somewhere at the Hall of Fame. We didn't know what to do. Never
You
had
got it right.
I agree. Didn't know what to do, so we looked for precedents, and we found that Northern Dancer and Big Ben both were members of both the Ontario and the Canadian Sport Halls of Fame. Big Ben was a great show jumper. Northern Dancer was a great racer. But they weren't as good in their disciplines as Some Beach Somewhere was in his. And so we said, what are we going to do? So we took it to our board, and we asked the board for this one-time sort of dispensation to have Some Beach Somewhere appear before our selection committee. And tonight the result is our first ever equine inductee to the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame. This was yes. This was a horse that on the track made millions, as a sire made millions. You bought him for $40,000. How did that happen?
We got lucky. You know, actually, there was a little bit of luck. There was a big race card on in Lexington, Kentucky that day, and he was selling the first horse to sell on Friday night, and the race card had got held up a little bit because there was a race off. There was two separate winners in a big race, and so everything got pushed back an hour. The sale started at 7. Typically, the races are over at 5. They weren't over that night till after 6, and there was only about 7 people at the sales ring when he went into the ring, and he was the first one to sell. And I actually thought I had him bought at 20, but had to double up.
Good double.
Yeah,
Good
well,
double. What something clearly attracted you to him? What was it?
Well, his presence, like he was he looked like Chris Burley there, and when he was like he really kind of stood out, you know.
Yeah. Chris, I think that's a compliment. I'm pretty sure that's a compliment.
Yeah, definitely, it's a compliment.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody's seen the Belmont Stakes race where Secretariat just pulls away and wins kind of for fun. Some Beach Somewhere had that quality, didn't he, where he'd just leave the field in his wake.
Yeah, he was bigger, stronger, and faster than the competition, and he stayed healthy.
Anybody in his prime ever offered to buy him from you?
Yeah, we had actually his first lifetime start, a little track in Elora, Ontario, and we had an offer of $750,000 for him after his first race, and his first race was good, but you know it wasn't really clicking to us that he was going to make $3.5 million and $160,000 every time he went to the gate. Like that wasn't in the plan, but we still decided to keep him.
Yeah. Why did you? He had a wonderful record, only one loss in his career. You kind of take the blame for that too, don't you?
Well, you know, it was we probably, like we were talking world record. We knew we were setting him up for a world record. And he had a world record as a 2-year-old, and probably got caught up in the moment a little bit. And there was 3 or 4 things, like there is in any sporting event when the favorites get beat, and all of them happened that night, and he got beat ahead. And it was probably a good thing at the end of the day. And you know, the Americans hadn't seen him at that time, and he was just a horse competing in Canada. And after he got beat up, or after he got beat that night, he bounced back and got real serious about it then. And, you know,
So you think you knew he lost, or he knew he lost?
Oh, I know he lost. There's no question. He was an athlete. He knew he got beat. And I was really concerned, you know, in the horse business, when they get beat or they get, you know, they put it all on the line and they don't get the job done. They know that. And they come back the next morning, they can be a little pouty, like athletes can be, you know. And I called, I was up early, and I called the guy that was feeding him, and because I wanted to know what was he looking for his breakfast in the morning or not. And his first words to me is, "I didn't know if he was going to eat the feed or me." So that was a good sign.
And he wasn't normally ornery, right?
No, he wasn't. He wanted to get back at it and straighten things up and make the record right. And it wasn't really very close after that.
Right. Why did you shut him down after year 3?
Money, basically. I mean, he picked up $3.5 million racing as a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and it was going to be really hard to continue on making that kind of money. And the industry was chomping at the bit to breed to a horse like him. And he's what we call an outcross in the industry, in that for instance, what an outcross is a horse that can breed. At Hanover Shoe Farms, they had 433 mares to breed, and Beach could breed 413 of them because of the breed that he was, because of his breeding in relation to what the mares were.
Good to be an outcross, huh?
Yeah, good to be
Holy
an
mackerel. Wow, that's a good retirement, outcross.
Good for us.
Yeah. Holy mackerel. We have a first at the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame, ladies.
We're looking for outcross.
Yeah. So he was not only the greatest harness racing horse in history, also by far the greatest sire, no question.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, yes, without question, in my mind, and there's a couple of the old fellas when they're asked, was he the greatest racehorse of all time? And there's a couple of them will say, I'm not sure of that, but without question, he's the greatest sire that ever lived. And it's really, really hard to do both. It's hard to do one. It's extremely hard to do
You're
both.
telling me. Give us a sense. I know, in all seriousness, you were really close to this horse. He was your buddy. How much do you miss him?
Oh, terribly. I mean, we miss him, and obviously he was, we have a number of businesses, and he was our best business. And, to lose him like that, like we did as quickly as we did, and I've been in the horse business my whole life, and horses are like athletes. They have ailments. They have things that you have to work on. They have health issues. They get a temperature. They get a cold. They get all the same things we do. And he just never had anything. Never had a temperature. They used to say we would pull the blood on him after he raced and a couple days before he raced, just make sure everything was okay. And the kind of the standing joke at the clinic was that we should calibrate the machine with his blood. And to have him pass away as quickly as he did, and most racehorse stallions on the farm that he was at lived till they're 30. Rhonda and I went through the cemetery at the farm when we come home from Florida, when we come back from Florida in the spring, and all the headstones are there of the greatest horses, and the average age was probably 28 or 29, and he was 13.
Right. Yeah, a terrible loss, but memories galore, right? And now, for the first time in the history of the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame, we have an equine member. I think you'd all agree, one of the greatest ever. Proud to have him in. Thank you, Brent.
Thank you.